This day's the day, a bad luck's always coming my way.
Language is a funny thing. Depending on where you are in the world, people pronounce things differently, sometimes right across the street from each other. Now, growing up in the United States, I always pronounced Aleister's name Aleister Crowley. But supposedly, according to him even, his name is actually pronounced Aleister Crowley. As like a crow. We're going to call him Aleister Crowley from now on. Now, baby Ghoul, growing up, you too pronounced his name Aleister Crowley. And it didn't help that Ozzy Osbourne had a song that states Mr. Crowley, and a lot of people pointed out that he himself even says his name wrong. Now, this street right here, we're showing it quite a bit here at the opening of this video, because down this street, you'll find two things. The famed Loch Ness, with the Loch Ness Monster, and right on the banks of Loch Ness is a house so evil called the Boleskine House. Driving down this road, we came across they're red ferns, like brown ferns. I just really think that it's just outside of season. But we wanted to stop and just it felt like appropriate, right? Now today, what we're going to attempt to do is shed some light on the history of this house and Aleister Crowley's time here. Now here's the thing, at some point, I know it's going to happen, we are going to mispronounce something, whether it's Crowley's name or House Boleskine or even the name of the ritual that Crowley was performing here whenever he lived here. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But speaking of bridges, right behind me is the bridge to where we're going. Now walking across this bridge, you're going to see two things. You're going to see a cemetery off to the left, we're going to talk about that in great detail. And then to the right, up the hill, is House Boleskine. Sadly, we can't get on property. They won't let us. We're going to talk about that as well. It really stinks that we can't get on property. But at least standing here on the street, we can actually see the house. That's it right there in the center of your screen. It's undergoing some pretty heavy-duty restoration. A couple times, well, we're going to talk about it as well, the house burned down or was vandalized. There's a foundation that owns it now. Like I said, they're in the process of renovating it. We reached out to them, asked if we could get on property, and they weren't too keen on letting that happen. So this is as close as we're going to get. When it comes to Aleister Crowley and the Boleskine House, really all I ever knew growing up was he performed some pretty serious black magic here. And it wasn't until doing research for this video I really got into the nitty-gritty details. And I always forgot that the house itself sits right on the banks of Loch Ness. I mean, the Loch Ness Monster, right? Now, the cemetery is called the Boleskine Burial Ground. And the reason for this is right where the Boleskine House stands today, there used to be a church that stood there. In fact, this whole little area of Boleskine was kind of like, I wouldn't say it was a religious Mecca, but it definitely was a passing point for a lot of ministers. And one day, way back in the day, the legend of this area goes that a dark wizard lived in a building where the house now stands, and he performed some necromancy, and all the people that are buried in this cemetery, he raised them. And it was up to one of the priests from that church to put all the dead back into their graves. Pretty crazy to think about, right? Now, as far as we can tell, and remember, we're not historians. We don't have any degrees or anything like that. I mean, we do as much research as we possibly can. But it seems that a lot of the bad, whatever you want to call it, pretty much started with the story about the dark wizard raising the dead. Now, don't get us wrong, parts of the story could be true. Again, it's just legend. There are a lot of old tombstones here, but there are also a lot of new tombstones, even people that haven't even died yet. Like, it just says their birth year, and they're just waiting for their name and their date whenever they can join this legendary cemetery. So let's make our way to the back of the cemetery, to the wall that overlooks Loch Ness. And look very carefully at the water, because you never know, you might see a monster swimming through it. Whether it was an old prehistoric being or something conjured by a dark wizard or Aleister Crowley himself, you just never know. Just look at this. Beautiful, right? Now, I know somebody's going to watch this video and they're going to say, wait a second, Mr. Grimm. If you can't get on the property, fly a drone, get the shots that you need. Well, it's just something that we don't do. And there are signs that say this is a no drone zone around the property. And the people are actually there working on the property right now. Like I said, it was burned down a couple different times. Somebody owns it now. It's a foundation, and they are trying to renovate it to the way that the house used to look. Which, considering the fact that the house burned down 3 times that I know of right off the bat, I don't know if I would want to spend that much money trying to restore it. But it's a piece of history.
Mansion once used for occult rituals has been badly damaged by fire. Boleskine House on the shores of Loch Ness was owned in the 19th century by Aleister Crowley, who claimed to have summoned demons there. The house was later owned by the Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page.
Now, if you're familiar with this story, then you know that Jimmy Page, the guitarist for Led Zeppelin, at one point owned this house. He had a fascination with dark arts, the occult, and Aleister Crowley himself. And while he was here, there's a couple really nice pictures of him and his dog up on the property that were taken. And one of them, you can actually see the cemetery off in the distance. Now, this wall right here, this is the part of the cemetery that can be seen in those photos. I haven't walked over there yet. I want to see if something matches up to the picture, one of the pictures. Now, it's not a very big cemetery, but if we walk up to this corner, the street is right there, and then the house is up here on top of the hill behind the trees. The picture was taken this way with Loch Ness in the background. And again, the little stone yard inside the graveyard can be seen. What you're looking at right now is the picture of Jimmy Page and his dog on the property of the Boleskine House. Again, you can see the cemetery off in the distance. Now, I can't get on the property to get the exact shot, but it was pointed down this way. And there's that stone yard within the graveyard right there. Now, Jessica's down there. She was taking some pictures. I'm going to point out something. Even though we can't match up the shot itself, match up the picture, the tombstones that can be seen in the photo are still here. Isn't this magical, baby? You can hear the hammering off in the distance of the house. So right over here in the corner on the wall, they kind of look like picture frames, don't they? These two right here can be seen way off in the distance of the picture of Jimmy Page and his dog on the property. Now, the one on the right, it looks like it fell down at some point, but they were both there. You can see it clear as day. To me, this is beyond crazy. Ever since I was a little kid, I would hear stories about this place and Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin and Aleister Crowley, because my dad is actually a big Led Zeppelin fan, so I wish he could see this place. But he can watch the video. Now, don't get me wrong. It would be really cool to get inside the house, but so much has changed. From fires to renovations to restoration. it doesn't really look the way that it did. And I think whenever it's finished, it's going to look brand spanking new. But still, to be able to be in the same room that Crowley was in, to walk the same halls as Crowley and Page, and be at the spot, the site where the church was, that, well, in a way started it all. But really, the only thing that remains is the cemetery across the street. Speaking of, this building right here says warning to construction site, keep out. They're doing something to it. Supposedly, this is the old mortuary building for the cemetery. Right on the banks of Loch Ness. Crazy, right? So let's put all of this dark magic and wizards and burning churches and necromancy aside. The ritual that Aleister Crowley was trying to perform while here at the Boleskine House was called the Abramelin ritual, which basically, what it comes down to, he was trying to raise demons and angels and harness all of their powers to give him the grand all-being knowledge, where he would know everything, where he would be all-powerful and can just defeat his foes, like poet W.B. Yeats and author Bram Stoker. Now, this ritual, Abramelin, from what I read, was a 6-month-long ritual that required a lot of fasting and sleep deprivation and a lot of chanting. A lot of work went into this. Crowley came all the way out here in the middle of nowhere for isolation so he can perform it. And then at the last minute, his friend who ran the Order of the Golden Dawn in Paris reached out to him and said, hey, we're having some problems. And even with all this preparation, for some reason, I always find this odd, Crowley said, all right, I'm done. And he went down to Paris to help his friend. It is rumored, legend is, that because he didn't close whatever gate or whatever window or whatever box or mirror he opened, those spirits still haunt this place. It's a crazy tale, right? You never know. Again, I'm still bummed that we can't get on the property itself, or even in the house. I mean, they are there, they are working. You can see razor wire above the wooden fence, so they definitely don't want people in. Believe me, I tried. But even though we can't get on the property, there is a front gate. It's kind of cool looking, so we're gonna go take a look at that right now. But the house is just beyond those trees. It's got a green roof right now. I like this. See this a lot over here in Europe. This property is protected by anti-climb paint. Now, it's been a rather busy road. There have been cars coming down. You can see they call this a single carriage road. Basically, you drive down it. If a car comes, there's 2 cars coming, you move over to the side. Or if you're walking like I am, then you just kind of hug the wall or hug the bushes as best as possible. As much as I am loving this, I know for a fact my dad would just lose his gourd over just being here. Just being able to look at the property, walk through the cemetery, see Loch Ness. It'd be something. I mean, come on. Look at this. How could you not love it? Wait a second. You see that in the water? What is that? There's something floating down the water. Don't think it's anything. I'm going to try to zoom in as best as possible, see if we can see it. We have to zoom in a little bit further. but right there in the water, I can barely see it with my eyes, there's something. It's probably a boat. But it makes your heart jump a little bit, doesn't it? All right, let's get back up on the road here. The driveway to the house is just down here to the left. I love these stone bridges that go over top of the water. So here's a look at the gatehouse. We can't go any further than this, which is perfectly fine. And who knows, whenever it gets renovated and they open to the public, maybe we can come back out here. There's a car coming. Let's see. The Boleskine House Foundation. And we are closed for the season due to Boleskine House undergoing construction. All visits must be supervised by a member of staff for health and safety purposes. Completely understand. Well, that's it. Crazy, right? Now, whether this land is actually haunted or the legends are true remains to be seen. But there's one thing for sure. There's definitely a lot of history that comes with this area. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time to the Boleskine House. Happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always